Hey guys, how's it going today? I hope you're all having a great day today. As I posted up yesterday, and true to a word of promise, am going to post my thoughts on the most recent Godzilla film. Now, I'm sorry if I'm looking down a lot. I did write a lot of notes about the movie that I want to express to you guys. Some of them are pretty valid, some of them are just kind of like CinemaSins sort of problems that I thought were kind of quirky and kind of fun to point out, but mostly I will be giving you my opinion on the film. So let's just start off from my checklist from top to bottom. First of all, I got the preview Into the Storm, and that movie looked terrible. I really want to go see it because of how terrible it looked. Then to compliment how terrible Into the Storm looked, the movie went into Edge of Tomorrow, which looks incredible. It's the next movie I'm probably going to go see. But starting to move on to Godzilla, which is the movie I went and saw and want to review, it has a really sweet sci-fi angle, with the beginnings being that Godzilla and the atomic testing in the Pacific was all just about trying to kill Godzilla. That's a sweet and solid opener. People who don't know Godzilla, people who do know Godzilla, I feel, can be sucked right into the film right away just by having a very sweet and efficient opener like that. It was very good. Moving on, the cinematography was amazing throughout this entire film, and though this is the first time I've noted it, I will probably note it again because wow, the cinematography was great in this movie. Everything felt very vast and beautiful and complementary to what we were going to see later in the movie with the giant kaiju. Solid cinematography. Kudos to the director. My next note is the elite team of elites being elite cliche, which I don't know. I just found that scene kind of funny with his wife and all of her team getting ready to go disconnect the bomb and acting all elite and awesome, especially with the scene that came after. Speaking of that scene, the downer character intro for Bryan Cranston's character, whose name I just don't recall off the top of my head, was pretty depressing. Very depressing. Not really necessary to have it be that depressing in the beginning of the movie. You probably could have waited a couple more minutes at the very least. But I guess it is a 2-hour movie as it stands, so you need to kind of clip along and get things done, right? Moving on to when Ford finally comes home and everything, and the obligatory almost sex scene. We all knew that it was going to get interrupted by something, and he was going to get taken away from home. It felt cliche, didn't take me out of the movie quite yet. Bryan Cranston, his beautiful mind room was kind of funny. I feel that trope is getting overused. I feel that this movie had a lot of tropes, which isn't bad. It's not bad that movies have tropes, it's just it becomes bad when movies begin to rely on them, which Godzilla didn't, thankfully. It did kind of mop itself up and got away from the tropes at times, which was great. I'm just noting that the movie did have quite a bit of tropes. My next note is that I don't give a shit about any of these characters right now, which is completely true. It took me quite a while to actually feel feelings about the human characters. All those complaints that I've seen that if the humans were interesting, the movie would be better, are pretty true. Whoever played Ford wasn't that great of an actor, at least in my opinion. And he had like 3 emotions, and that was blank, scared, and then angry. And he didn't do any of the 3 very well at all. What was sweet, though, and what was awesome, was when they went back to their house, and his little caterpillar thing had Mothra as the reference. That was sweet. I love that reference. I love when movies with a fan base give us references to act out upon and see. And that was one of the coolest ones I've ever seen. Other than all the subliminal ones in the dreaded Man of Steel, then Mothra's is way up there. My first impressions of the monster when they finally showed it, the male Muto, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm mistaken, please. I was like, it's a big atomic leech. It's kind of lame. And then it came out of its shell, and it was even lamer. It was the Cloverfield monster. Come on. You can't tell me that it wasn't the Cloverfield monster. That was totally the design of the Cloverfield monster. Thank God it grew wings and flew away. Otherwise, that was some very, very lazy design. I have big problems with the female Muto design. It feels like they just didn't want to try. Either they were taking a stab at Cloverfield, either they were trying to make a reference to Cloverfield, or they just didn't care. I don't know which one it is, but it irked me the entire movie. Every time I saw the female Muto, I'd be like, man, you couldn't do something else with that? Going on, I'm going to skip a couple of these things. The first time I actually find myself caring about one of the characters was during the scene after the Muto escaped. And we had the Oriental actor. I'm sorry, I'm going to look up his name right now because his name actually just escapes my mind. However, he was looking down upon the atomic core section and all the human lives that had to have been lost and everything, mostly due to a decision of his own making. And he, the regret on his face, and throughout which he carries throughout the entire movie, and the shock. Oh, it's Ken Watanabe, or Watanabe. That's how you pronounce it. I can pronounce names. Did an exceptional job throughout the entire movie, and though I've heard some people saying that Bryan Cranston was the best actor in the movie, it was definitely Watanabe. I'm not going to hear any arguments otherwise. Sorry, won't listen to him. I lost my place here. Oh yeah, the reimagining of Godzilla was sweet. A little weird, but sweet, because they never really explained how Godzilla survived. Is he a relic of this huge mass extinction that kind of just got down near the Earth's core and survived all this time off the radiation from that? Or is he a rebirth? Like, they mentioned that the first atomic sub reawoken him, but how? Was he still whole? Was he a baby and they restarted the growing process? It really irked me how vague they were on Godzilla's origins. That's what we're interested in, right? That this is technically a Godzilla Origins movie with the next movie already confirmed, correct? That annoyed me. The name reveal was sweet. Having a person of Japanese descent introduce the character and say it in such a fashion like Gojira, or even just the way he said Godzilla, was perfect. That's the way you should introduce a character like that. Oh, Godzilla. Yeah, Godzilla's a character. Whatever. The way that they approached it is definitely the best angle for Godzilla, that he's a force of nature, a balancing act, perhaps even nature's revenge if we were to step out of line. Evolutionary perfection, I guess, is another way to approach Godzilla, and I think that was the best way to approach it. Any other way would have been kind of weird, and it wouldn't have worked. I really like this one. During the whole scene where Godzilla is approaching Hawaii, and the tsunami comes and breaks in, and we have the family running away from the tsunami wave, with the little girl. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to see children dying on screen or anything, but when they ran into that, I'm guessing laundromat, we're going to say it was a laundromat, those windows definitely would have broke. I'm sorry. This happened a few times during the film where they unrealistically had people survive situations that they would never, ever, ever live in the real life. We definitely knew it was a movie at that point. I mean, there was big monsters fighting, of course, so we knew it was a movie, but I'm not going to suspend my disbelief that much. That water force would have broke those windows. Those people are dead. I'm sorry. The reveal for Godzilla was excellent, letting us steal, not smeal, small glances at him, all in the meanwhile giving us all of the things that we would want to see. And then finally showing him, and the roar. Oh, it was excellent. Even my father, who's not a huge Godzilla fan at all, made note of how awesome they made his roar appear every time. Like, his whole face was quivering. You could see, like, parts of his body moving from how much effort he was putting at the saliva coming out of his mouth. It was just excellent. They put so much detail into something so very iconic. That was probably the second or third best part of the movie for me, was just seeing Godzilla roar for the first time. Someone can maybe explain this to me, but the new Moto grew in the atomic waste site, correct? But was it eating that entire time? Did the U.S. government really not check any of those vaults to see an explosive growing giant monster? That seems a little shady to me. Again, I can only suspend my disbelief so far, and that was kind of a lot to ask. The whole survivor's guilt angle with Watanabe's character, kind of cool that he had his dad die from the atomic bomb, kind of related to the entire storyline, but I don't know. I don't care. Who cares? Why don't you just be a Japanese dude who knows a lot about Godzilla? The typical American response of nuking everything that could become a potential problem, especially after just putting down the red phone, was pretty funny. I laughed pretty hard, and I was the only person in the theater laughing, so I felt pretty awkward. But, I mean, come on. You couldn't have gotten more cliche than, oh, the Americans are just gonna nuke the big monsters. Ford's character is stupidly unlucky. Come on. First, his mom dies from it. Then he goes back to Japan and his dad dies from the Muto. And then he goes to America, or to Hawaii, where the Muto just happens to be. And then he runs into Godzilla there too. And then he goes to the States, and the Muto follows him. I'm like, come on. I know these... Again, I can only suspend my disbelief so far, and I'm not going to buy that this Muto followed him his entire journey to America. That's just nonsense. After the train fell off the bridge, and so did Ford, the train would have crushed him, not to mention that the train also, the impact on the water would have killed Ford. So, there's another case of these things would have killed people. And Ford is dead. Ford should have been dead. I cared about the actors, again, only because the chick who played Elle, whoever she is, she did a phenomenal job the entire movie. I felt her emotions were the most real, other than maybe Watanabe and Cranston's. She definitely portrayed being terrified and scared. Oh, those mean the same thing, don't they? Whatever. Just listen to me, I'm talking. She felt real. That's how I imagine someone, like a nurse, or was she a doctor? I don't know. That's how I imagine they would respond. Maybe a little less believable on thinking that her husband was going to come back. But whatever. You know, every character's a lot of flaws. During the whole scene where we were expecting to see Godzilla on the Golden Gate Bridge, and then the frickin' crane or Pelican or whatever it was hit the bus door, I jumped. I got into the moment and jumped. I can admit that to you all. When the bus driver started going down the road, and this is another thing about suspending my disbelief, when he started going down the bridge, no one shot him. Not one of those soldiers shot him. He was putting a ton of lives in danger. I think they just shot him. when they finally gave us Godzilla, like, we got a good look at what he was going to start doing in San Francisco. He looks great. Detail was amazing. You could see little battle scars all over him. And just stuff like that. His teeth looked yellow and like they had been used, rather than just being perfect white, jagged edges. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but a couple of his ridges had chips on them, like they had been used in battle and had been broken. He was a believable monster. He was not perfect. Fantastic. If we knew EMP was a risk, why did we continue to send jets? Like I said, some of these are kind of cinema sin things. Just small little flaws that were like, I don't know about that. It's the fact that the male Muto, when it landed on like a Japanese theater, made me laugh. I don't know if it was supposed to, but it did. The big love scene between the two huge alien radioactive parasites was hilarious. Hilarious. It was one of the most foreign things I've ever seen in an action movie ever. You might as well have had, like, When a Man Loves a Woman playing in the background. It was pretty funny. The lead up to the Halo jump scene, which is probably going to be the most remembered by people who only saw the first trailer, or something like that, or it's all over the promotional. There was a good lead up to the Halo jump scene. The soundtrack was incredible. This movie had a fantastic soundtrack. It did good with sounds all around, in fact. Like, the monsters sound believable. When they were moving, my dad asked me, why did they make such, like, long looming sounds, low undulating sounds? And I explained to him that monsters with that much mass, merely moving is going to create sound. Like, just their bones creaking from their massive weight would create the types of sounds that we heard. So I thought that the movie really cranked it up in the sound division and did an incredible job with the entire movie. Kudos to the soundtrack, kudos to the sound effects. Made the movie very believable. Other than the things I pointed out before. But that's not sound's fault. When Godzilla sees the female Muto, I just wanted the Mortal Kombat announcer to just scream, "Ready, fight!" And it was a sweet fight scene. I don't know, I've seen a couple of people complaining about the fight action. The fight action was great. It looked great. Let's see. I kind of lost myself there. Sorry. During the whole scene with them trying to disarm the nuke, first of all, they had 27 minutes to disarm that nuke. I'm sure they could have just broken open the cover and Ford could have disarmed the whole entire thing. Second of all, the army really doesn't want to kill a giant chamber full of alien radioactive parasite babies that grow to be 300 feet big. Or bigger. That seemed off. It was weird. Didn't take me out of the movie. Just seemed off. I guess they needed to give Ford a way to be heroic. So that's why they did that whole scene where he went back and killed all the babies. I guess. I'm not sure. I legitimately felt bad for the monster when it came back and saw that its offspring was dead. Okay, sorry about that. We kind of have to part 1 and part 2 this now, because my parents got home, and I didn't want them interrupting the recording. So I had to go tell them I was recording. So we'll part 1 and part 2 this. Why not? I was on the mom monster. I felt bad for her. The offspring, the maternal instincts. It was pretty cool. Anyway, just like George, I think, said, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but just when I thought that they weren't going to use atomic breath, I saw Godzilla's tail start to glow. And then he got up and he just atomic breathed the crap out of the female Muto, and that was incredible. It was sweet. It looked awesome. The new updates to CGI technology made it look great. Solid all-around scene. Probably my second favorite in the entire movie. When he was fighting the male Muto, excuse me, and he just tail whipped the crap out of it, that made my theater cheer. I actually had a bunch of people clapping in the theater, and my dad exclaimed, "Whoa!" It was a good scene. It was another great scene. This movie is packed with great scenes and great moments. Ford trying to drive the atomic bomb out of the boat was pretty sweet. It was pretty cool. It was a good character moment from Ford. Even if the movie took me right out of disbelief again after just watching giant monsters fight where he gets rescued. That was bullcrap. Sorry, Ford's dead again. But now we're going to talk about my favorite scene in the movie, which I think a lot of people will agree with, was when Godzilla grabbed the female Muto and then just atomic breathed her down her throat. That was awesome. That is a sweet way to end a fight. That is the king of monsters declaring that he is the superior being in this fight and just destroying the other being in a brutal way possible. Like, he even just decapitated her and threw her head off. That was really good. That was my favorite scene in the movie by far. Definitely worth the price of admission. If you could let me watch that scene over and over and over and over and over and over again, I probably would never get tired of it, because it capped off a really good fight. And may I also mention during the fight, because I didn't write this note down, that there were a couple of times where I legitimately thought Godzilla may lose. They didn't make the Mutos anything easy to walk all over, which I feel sometimes they did. In Toho, or Tojo, or however you pronounce that studio's names, movies, like during Godzilla Final Wars. I know that you have to make scenes shorter in a movie like that, where he's fighting all of his villains or monsters or however have you. But some of those monsters who were supposed to be legitimate threats were just walked all over, and I felt that was bad. I didn't feel like when they did it to Zilla, it was funny, but when they did it to a couple of the others, it was like, oh, okay, there was entire movies dedicated to that monster and you fighting, and now you're just walking all over him? What? But with the Mutos, I felt that they actually made them legitimate threats, and that Godzilla actually had to put effort into fighting them. That was a good movement. At the end of it all, the whole feel-good moments, Ford getting reunited with his family and everything, they were okay, I guess. I know you have to wrap up all of the storylines, but all we really cared about was Godzilla getting up and then calling him the king of monsters, right? That was awesome, right? And so that ends my notes about the movie. Now we're just going to go into kind of my general feelings about the movie. The general feelings about the movie was that it was an awesome movie. I'm so glad I went to go see it. I can't remember a time I can remember saying that I was very glad to go see a movie. The last movie I think I saw was Desolation of Smaug. And while Desolation of Smaug was very good, I don't particularly feel I was very happy going to see it like I am Godzilla. There were definitely moments in Godzilla where I'm like, what? Really? Come on. Even for a giant monster movie, this is bullcrap. But there weren't enough of those moments, and they weren't severe enough that it took me out of the film completely. It took me out of the film for a couple of seconds, but then this movie successfully managed to bring me right back in. So I don't think those complaints find base if I wanted to say I dislike the movie. I feel the acting could have been a little bit better out of the main character. That's probably my biggest complaint about the movie. However, the pros outweigh the cons. Godzilla looked incredible. The Mudos looked incredible. We had great acting out of 3 or 4 different characters who were very big supporting characters. Cinematography was top notch. Sound effects were top notch. Soundtrack was top notch. Fighting scenes were great. Overall, this is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen related to a medium not of this country, I guess we should say. I guess we should say within pop culture. Overall, the movie receives an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I'd love to know what you guys think. You guys are great at critiquing movies. And till the next movie I go see, which may be Days of Future Past on Tuesday. Until then, guys, have a great day.